We'll talk about the syllabus. This little blue box on the left-hand side, that's my contact information. So it's got my office phone number. And if you call the office phone number and you're not in a big hurry, if I'm not there and you leave a message, the system converts the message to a WAV file and attaches it to an email and sends it to you. So I'll get your message for you. But if you need a quicker response, then text me on my cell phone. There's my email address. Office hours is the same office hours that are in the schedule. All right, so everybody knows about Cengage Unlimited. I don't have to beat that horse anymore. I just have, actually the problem's on my end. If you have Cengage Unlimited, you should be able to go into it without a problem. So that's my fault. Or Cengage's fault. I don't know how the course disappeared. So I'll go in and recreate it. If you want a hard copy, Cengage will send you a loaner for the semester. I think they charge $8 for. They're out of stock. Oh, well then if you want a hard copy, just buy a used edition or an older edition. You know, 8th or 9th edition instead of 10th. You'll get all the information you need. I like to have a hard copy. At least when I was a student, I've got all my old textbooks. So in a box in the basement. You need a calculator. You need a scientific calculator. If it says scientific, you're good to go. And it'll have all these functions on it. And learn how to use your calculator. I'll point you to specific functions that you'll need as we come to them in discussions. But every calculator is different. In fact, the one I use, you wouldn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole because it doesn't use algebraic notation. Like 1 + 1 equals reverse Polish notation. That throws people for a loop. Once you get used to it, it's great. You don't have to put all the parentheses in there if you have to do complex calculations. It's no problem. But you need that calculator, and you can use any kind of calculator on your phone, on your computer if you bring your laptop, except during exams. During exams, you have to use a bona fide calculator. Cell phones are just way too smart. Okay. Other materials, let's see. I'll hand out hard copies of everything, PowerPoint slides. I didn't give you review documents today. I'll point those out. We'll go into Blackboard and I'll show you where all that stuff is and what it is and why it's there. So we'll get to that in a minute. Let's see. You don't need to you don't worry about that. You mean read that stuff if you want, but I'm skipping to the important parts. We will have regular exams, face-to-face, of course. Let's see, how many of us are? We're missing 3 people today. Oh, okay. You're gonna fill her in?
Yeah.
Okay. And she can watch the videos. I download the videos from the Zoom website. I stream it to their cloud. And I download the videos and process them. Because sometimes there's a lot of dead space in there and I just cut it out. And when I get it processed, I upload it to YouTube and then put the link in Blackboard. And I'll show you where I'll put those links. So all you have to do is click on that and it pops up the YouTube video. Okay. I think all we have on the agenda for Thursday is chapter 1 lecture. So you can get it from the video. If you have to miss a day, try to miss a Thursday. A whole month? Oh, I see. Okay, we'll have to work something out. But you'll have to remind me though.
Oh, I could be here in 2 weeks, depending on how
probably need contingencies.
I'll try.
Yeah.
I might have my mom do it.
Okay.
I'll be-
All right. We accommodate disabilities. Regular exams, of course, and I'll talk about these a little more when we get to the schedule. The schedule is really the central part of this whole syllabus. And the homework, of course, that's how you get to it. And I'll do my part to fix that. Let's see. Grading scale. Actually, that's more important than schedule. What does it take to pass the grade? I'm on a 10-point scale. So 90% or better is an A. The exams are worth 70%. And if you can't make it on that day and we haven't made prior arrangements, then when you make it up, I count the days that you missed, and that's 1% per day. Increases your score. Same thing with homework. Your homework is set to be due on the same day as the exam. So there's no guesswork. You have an exam, you know homework's due for that material. And that's encourages the same penalty. But the homework, you don't do in class. So the day that it's due, it doesn't have to be due when you walk into the test. It's due by midnight that day. So that gives you a few extra hours. You get credit for showing up and participating. I mean, if you sit back there and fall asleep, I had a student do that. He was working weird hours, and he sit back there and just fall asleep every time. So if you fall asleep, or you spend all your time on your cell phone, or you bring your laptop and you're playing games on your laptop, that's not participating. So you don't get credit for that. And then the syllabus test, I'll show you where that is. It's just a little 10 question thing that helps encourage you to read the syllabus, and you can have the syllabus in your possession when you're taking this test. Just go into Blackboard. I don't use Respondus Monitor or a lockdown browser for this one. Just go in there, because you can have the syllabus in your hand when you're taking it and look up the answers. And then that syllabus test will get you 1%. Administrative withdrawal is something that the dean and others created and want us to stick it in here. So that's all that's the reason that's there. I wanted to put it where you would definitely see it. And that was right next to grading scale. So it tells you a little bit about administrative withdrawal procedure. And there's a whole lot more detail on our website about this. You just go to the main page where it has that little looking glass search. You just type in administrative withdrawal, and if you want to learn more about it. I talked about contacting me at outside class already. If you need tutoring and you can't make it to campus, like if you live a long way away, we can Zoom a session. But I have to know that.
What do you consider a long way away?
Lewisburg.
I live further than Lewisburg.
Really? Oh, okay. And how much further? Like twice as far?
I live in Lewisburg to go home.
Okay. You live up in Pocahontas?
No, I live in Braxton.
Braxton. Okay. I'm not a native, so I'm still learning my way around.
Very center.
Okay. So all you need is a computer and a webcam and a microphone, and we can meet. If you need to meet, text me or email me, and we can set up a time. And then there are details in here about we'll get to it, about how to connect Zoom. That's not a regularly scheduled lecture. It's my personal Zoom account, and you can Zoom in, and if I know you're coming, I'll be there, and we can meet. I don't have any problems. Let's see. Okay. So let's look at the schedule. Barring any complications imposed on us by COVID or administrative snafus, these dates and activities are chiseled in stone. This is what we're going to be doing on each one of these days. So down the center, you see those yellow highlighted things. Those are to draw your attention to deadlines, due dates. Those are exam dates or homework due dates. You'll also notice some grade things across there. They're not on our days. Like there's a Friday and there's a Monday. There's another Friday. Those are just reminders of school things. Like the last ab drop day is 20th of August. And then you can scroll down to 11th of October. That's when I have to turn in mid-semester grades. Okay. And actually that's good because you'll have 3 exams under your belt. The opportunity to really see how you're doing in the course. And then the next one is November 5th. That's the last day that you can withdraw with a double. Then there's Thanksgiving recess. So that week is off. And let's see, we don't have to worry about Labor Day because it's on a Monday. Buffers. Oh, I build in, I'm long-winded. So if I go too long one day and we have to cut it off, then we can pick it up again on that day. Those are my buffer days.
The world is trying to do now. Close that. All right.
And I do have to use them. Okay, any questions about the schedule? On the right-hand side is the chapter and materials that are covered for the next exam. So if you look down here, say on the right, chapter 3, stoichiometry, and chapter 4, types of chemical reactions, then you follow that down over on the left and you see exam 2, chapter 3, 4. So that's the material that we're covering on those days, and it shows up on that exam. Okay. All right, so let's see. Attendance policy. Unless we work something out. Newer attendance policy is more lenient than my attendance policy. They give you excused absences. But in this course, since I'm giving you credit for participating, showing up, no absences are excused. So we'll work out your deal. Yeah, well, that's good for the school. And I probably should keep a copy too. Just, if there's a possibility to zoom into the course, that will get you attendance. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If I see you there and you're participating, I like to turn the camera on so I can see you. I mean, if you have to be in pajamas, I understand because you're recuperating. Normally I say street dress, even if you're on Zoom, but we make exceptions.
They can never see pants. I'll make sure it's nice.
Okay, let's see. Bonuses. I have occasionally students, usually happens late in the semester when their grades are about to tank and they want extra credit to build their grades up. Won't happen. Everybody gets extra credit. Projects, if they're given, everybody gets the same one. I don't give special privileges to anybody. So, and I have some built-in, let's see, this is 101. Yeah, I do have some extra credit projects and that'll come along in a couple of weeks, and I'll show you. Actually, I'll bring you hard copies. And they're designed to help you learn the material, because some of this takes some effort, and you need like it's not really a game, but it's an activity that helps you learn things. Like one has to do with the periodic table. Another one has to do with naming compounds. So, and you get extra credit for those. And they give you practice. Right. So extra credit is given to everybody without prejudice. No special favors. Makeup testing. I think I mentioned that. You have to make up a test. We don't make some other arrangement for taking the test. And I have to deal with those case by case. Corrections. What I try to do is face to face, you'll have the paper, the hard copy, you'll take the test, hand it to me. And as soon as I get one, who finishes first, I get it, I start grading immediately. And very often I get all of them graded before you leave the class. So you know what your status is immediately. You don't have to wait for me to go have a burger, or go to a party, or take a trip around town before I get around to grading your test. I do that first. I get it done. And if I don't get it done in class, I go straight to my office and grade them. They're done quick. And then I post the grades in Blackboard. So you should see them in your grade book. When you go into my grade book, you should see your grade. And the grade, I don't like the utility that Blackboard has for averaging grades. It's not very user-friendly, and it doesn't allow flexibility for, giving certain number of points for this activity and that activity. It's really clunky. But we're going to get rid of it in December anyway. So maybe D2L. I'm sorry?
Are you guys going to bright space?
Is that D2L? Bright space, yes. Yes. Do you know it?
My mom is an English teacher, a college English teacher, along with a high school English teacher. And she, right before the first day of school, they switched everything from Blackboard to Brightspace.
Are they having trouble?
I deleted all of her courses.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
So make sure you have them saved.
I got backup copies of all of them.
Okay.
Yeah. In Blackboard, you can export to it's a format that will import to other learning management systems. So I'm sure I got those. And I know if that happens to us, the vice president of information services, he better hide, because the faculty will kill him. Okay, let's see. Corrections. Okay, so if you get back your copy of the exam and you look at it and say, I think I got that one right. So mark it for me to check it in some other ink besides red, because that's my color. And hand it back to me, and I'll recheck it to be sure I didn't make a mistake. Because I'm not a machine. I can make mistakes. And I try to grade fast, so sometimes I'm too fast. And I do want to say this. I try to say it to every class, every semester. Your grade will not suffer from my mistakes. If I make a mistake, it doesn't impact your grade. I'll figure some way to compensate you for it. So I only want to grade you based upon your actions, not on mine. So if I make a mistake, I don't do like Biden, try to cover it up. Only his mistakes are whoppers. Afghanistan is going down the tubes in a hurry, and that couldn't be prevented. Oh, I didn't bring my soapbox, so I better not say anything. Exam etiquette. Everybody knows how to behave during an exam. Right? All you need is a pencil. You can have some scratch paper along with you. I try to provide a lot of empty space in the exam, so you can scribble small calculations. There's room there. But if you need to go into it in depth, then you can have scratch paper with you. and your calculator, so calculator test, scrap paper, and everything else goes on the floor in your bag. Yeah, you can have a drink of water. I get thirsty. Okay, and then just be courteous to everybody. I know testing is a nerve-wracking experience. I used to be a student, and you can have nervous tics like tapping on the table or patting your feet. As long as we're on carpet and your feet, you can do that. Yeah, nobody will hear it. Right? You can bounce your legs. If you're nervous. That's okay. As long as it doesn't disturb anybody, we're good. And I think these tables are better than the last group we had. The last set we had was big squeakers. You couldn't move without a table squeaking. I couldn't blame that on the student. You can't, no cell phones. No ear pods, anything like that. You want to find out what you know. Let's see. Office hours. There's a thing on page 8 about connecting with me for office hours. That Zoom. So in red, there's my Zoom ID. So when you go into Zoom, not within Blackboard, but you have to go, I guess, through the New River portal, go to the Zoom thing, and then you can enter a meeting there. As long as I know you're coming, then I'll be there waiting for you. And those are the instructions. Additional information, you can read that at your leisure. OWL homework, I've got an appendix on that. That's not much point in looking at that right now because you can't get into it. Let's see. Here's how you zoom into the class. Appendix 2, if you need to do that. I left appendix 3 in here. I don't know why. I created appendix 3 for when we were homebound, because at home I would do the Zoom sessions and I would share the PowerPoints in a split screen. And this tells you how to resize your split screen so you see less of me and more of the slides. Let's see, is there anything else? No, that's it. Okay, so now we can look at Blackboard. And I assume everybody's had an initial look at Blackboard, but there's some things I'd like to point out. Okay. So here I've got Blackboard. Everything starts from start here. But there's some other things there on that left-hand panel that are useful information. This one right here, that the NCRTC email. If you click on that, you can send emails to any student in the class or all of them and to me. And you don't have to dig through the address book to find individuals that are in your class. Okay. So if you're partnering with somebody in the lab and you need to connect with them by email, then this would be the best way to go. Go in there and just pick out an individual that's your partner and you can send them an email. The bad thing about it is you can't receive emails this way. You have to receive it through the app. Either if you've got it linked in your Outlook or if you go on the website and open the email. Can't see it. It's in there somewhere. I use it all the time. When I sent you guys an email about Cengage, that's where I went. So I knew everybody that was registered in the class got the email. Let's see, there's your Zoom connection. You just click on that, pick the one it'll say the only one that's available at that time. If you have to Zoom, it'll say start, and the rest of them won't have anything next to it. So you really can't make a mistake. Let's see. Well, there's some tools. There's our COVID exposure reporting requirement. Right? If you get exposed, then they require some reporting. And that tells you how to do it. Okay. So, let's see. Let me work from over here. Here's where your syllabus is. Question? Oh, okay. All right. Here's the trick. This is the instructor. Let me go to the student. There we go. Does that look more familiar?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So this first folder here is the syllabus. It's got a copy of the syllabus, and it also has the my schedule. So you can make another copy if you lose. This video resources is something that IT put in. So they have some video resources I haven't looked at. So you're welcome to use it. I don't think it's essential for this course. There's your. This is actually a PowerPoint presentation on our homework. You can look at it. But in my, I've been into, it seems to use a print, so it's probably more to it. Most machines do. So there's some more stuff on our homework. This syllabus test. All you have to do is, like I said, go in Blackboard, take that test. And I think I've got it set up so that nothing, you won't have access to a lot of materials, of course, until you take the test. And it has fill in the blank answers for some of them, which means I've got to go in and look at them and score it. So when you take it, it won't automatically score it. If it were all multiple choice, then it would score them. Okay. But I've got to go in and score them, and then you have access to the material. I think that'll bear me out when we get to the learning projects to see what's there and what's not there. I've got a duplicate of the course schedule here. If you ever have to Zoom from a mobile device, then and you don't have good access to Blackboard and connecting to Zoom and Blackboard, you can connect straight through Zoom using this ID code right here and this passcode. It asks you for that information. That's where if you need readers, everything I give is PDF format. And if you don't already have PDF on your computer, these two work pretty well. That's the one from the originator. And this one is a third party. It's pretty good too. I'll try to use the red post. They don't work. Okay. You also have access to Microsoft Office, a free version through the college license. It's Office 365. Unless I miss my guess, you can go here. If you want to get a copy and this doesn't work for you, just contact IT and they'll be. I just upgraded one of my computers to this. Let's see. What's this one? Oh, that's a direct connection to the e-book. So as long as you register, you'll recognize you and go there. Access the and there's your direct connection. It should work. After a while. Same as that. But the real, I think West Virginia's have one. Actually, West Virginia gave up its southern rights when they 1863. They split off from Virginia. That place, is it Honey in the Rock? Is that the one? Talks about West Virginia's becoming independent state. I think that's the one that they play out. Randy. Anyway, there's some supplemental documents. I'm not sure what I got. There's some documents on how to name compounds. Those are useful. Periodic tables, solubility charts, stoichiometry. This, I wouldn't go in there. It might confuse you until we get to those topics. And when I give you a handout, then you might go in there and see, okay, I already got this one. What are these others? If you're curious, you're there. Otherwise, just go with what I give. Because I think I created that while ago. Okay, learning modules. These learning modules are arranged with the same numbering as the exams. So learning module 1 give you everything you need for exam 1. And it's like, yeah, there's 7 of them. Now that, I don't think, right. I didn't schedule a final exam for this class this semester, simply because there's not enough time. I can't squeeze in all the chapters and then have enough time to review and prep for a final exam, so I just threw it out. Some people, very few, are upset by that prospect. They love to take final exams. Nobody can hear about it. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at one of them and see if it's missing some material because I haven't taken them. Okay, this is an outline of the chapter right here, and it's worded in such a way that these are all action words. Find chemistry, you describe something, you explain something, you compare something. That's so the EDDs are happy. That Doctors of Education. It's one of those. That's anyway, you don't have any relatives that are EDD. I don't want to insult anybody. I still want my insults to be directed at EDD. Okay. So, and these numbers here, these heading numbers, down to 10, those are section numbers in the chapter. So, to locate the information, that's the take part. I could do A, B's, and C's and Roman numerals, that kind of stuff in here. Blackboard will have to do it. So the sublevels are all numerical. Okay, so see, there's nothing else available. That's because I haven't done the syllabus list. So this, it won't open this up until you get the syllabus list. That's so that people don't hopscotch around in the course. And if I'm not mistaken, I've got it set up so that module 2 won't open until module 1 exam is graded. I'll do that with you. Blackboard sees a grade for exam 1, the material for exam 2. Exam 3 material doesn't open up until exam 2. That was useful for when we were completely online, or Zooming and have online activities like that. But I'm not sure if it's valid for text to text. I may cut that. I'll do it all. Okay, so I need to show you what's in here. So that means I got to get out of student. Go back to instructed. Now, let's go back down to module 1. So that exam is going to cover chapter 1 and 2. Here we go. So this material should open up. And since we got 2 chapters, then I have to write the objectives for 1, and then PowerPoint slides for 1. And then chapter 2 objectives, and then PowerPoint slides for 2. So in this one, what you'll see is 3 flavors of PowerPoint slides. You actually have the PowerPoint version, the PPT or PPTX. And you need Microsoft Office or the PowerPoint app in order to view this file. If you don't have the app or you don't have access to it, say you're somewhere and you just don't, then you can look at the PDF file. It's the same thing. It's got all the slides in it. The only thing it doesn't have is the animations. So I said, well, I need to find a way to do that. So I took the PowerPoints and I bought a program that will allow me to convert them to HTML format. So you can see this opens up in the browser. So if you can get to a browser, you can get Blackboard, click on this, then it will open up in your browser just like that. You'll see every slide as if it were PowerPoint. And if there are any animations, if there are any videos embedded, they will show here too. HTML packages, all of them together. You can view them from any browser. I've used these before when I couldn't get my PowerPoint slides on a thumb drive or corrupted. I couldn't open them up. I just went to the website, called this up, and went on very quick. So it saved my neck once or twice. Okay, so that's what you find in the PowerPoint slide folder. Let's see. There we go. So this will be chapter 2, and then you'll have learn these elements. Okay, this particular activity has a periodic table. Let's see. So here we go. There. Download it. So now I need to go over here and open it up. Let's see. Actually, I should give you a copy of this. Believe me, I'm running way behind this stuff. It's been a nightmare. There we go. I usually have more handouts. In fact, I usually have the entire course printed out on my shelf in my office. And I'm just pulling it out. I try to do all my work up front. Okay. What is that? It's a free app, so you have to. Okay, so this is what that document looks like. I couldn't find. Let's see if this is good. Yeah, I believe so. I believe that was correct. This is a periodic table, and I had to create this thing myself in Word because I couldn't look everywhere on the internet, couldn't find one that would suit me, that I could modify to put the information in it that I wanted. So I said, I'm wasting too much time looking, I'm just going to make it myself. So I built this one myself, and I outlined in red those element symbols that I want you to learn. And just memorize them. That's all there is to it. So it looks like there are a lot of them, but there are 118 elements in the periodic chart, and you only have to learn about half of them. So these in red are the ones I want you to learn. There, all these are here, and 2 of these down here. These I want you to learn for historical significance. U is uranium, right? We bombed the crap out of Japan with one of those bombs. And then plutonium was Fat Man, and we bombed the crap out of Japan again with one made out of that stuff. So that's the only reason I want you to learn those. So how do you learn those? Well, since we're on the topic, Cards, flip cards, they work the best. You go through and make your own. I had a student buy a set of element cards with a name on one side and a symbol on the other, and that's okay. But I think there's a value to getting index cards and making them yourself. Write the symbol on one side, flip it over, and write the name. That's gets the wheels turning. And then you go through and you take that stack and you shuffle them up, and you go through them one time. Say you look at the symbol. Or you can do it any way you want to. Go through it so you look at the symbol and you name it. Flip it. I got it right. Put it in this stack. Read. Look at another one. That got it wrong. Put it in this stack. So you go through that once, and then you take the ones you didn't get and work on those until you got everything in this stack over here. Then you reshuffle them and go back and do the whole thing over again until you can go through the whole stack and not miss a single one. Okay, that's how you memorize symbols. So that copy is in Blackboard, and if you want me to, I'll print some out and next time. So print. No leaves. So I've got another one. Notice that there are no names here. They're all symbols. That's because I've got a version of this that I make available on the tests. And I mean, some of the questions on the tests are, name this element. And if I put the answers there, it'd be kind of defeat the purpose. So this one has no names in it. Your textbook probably has a periodic table with names and symbols. And then it also has on the front, in one of the front pages, it has an alphabetical list of the elements with names. When you're making your cards, you can use that one, as long as you just don't make one that you don't need. All right, but there's basic information in there that we'll eventually need, like the atomic number or the atomic weight. Those two are necessary. And they're typical valences, we call them. We'll have to define that later, what a valence is. Think of it as a charge. Typical charges over here in the upper right-hand corner of each one. Okay.
Each one of the ones that we have to know.
On all of them, actually.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they're all there. Now, those are not all of the charges or the valences that are available to these elements. They're the most common. There's not enough room for all of them in that little space. So I got to know, I'll make copies of those and hand them out next time.
So when we memorize these elements, are we also supposed to remember the top number?
No. Now that's what the periodic table is for.
Okay.
We'll always have that. You just need to know the symbols so that you can find the information. And when we start writing compounds, we use these symbols. And when we start writing chemical reactions, we need to know the symbols. Chemistry is going to build on what you know in the past. It's going to pile up. And if you don't know these symbols in the beginning, then later on you're going to have real trouble writing, naming compounds, and writing chemical reactions. You can't do it unless you know that. This is the vocabulary. I mean, this is the alphabet of chemistry. These symbols. There's some of them in there that I don't think I even know, especially these new ones. These used to be empty spaces, and I created these flaps and filled it out because they all have names. There for a while, they were just fillers. They had this weird naming convention for unnamed elements. We don't need to waste time on that. But now they all have names, all 118 of them. Now, theoretically, there could be more, but they're difficult to make. And you'll see, based on these brackets down here, whenever you see the bracket, those are man-made. So all these are man-made here. These are naturally occurring. These are all, that's man-made, naturally occurring, and these are all man-made. some reservation. Some of the man-made ones, we eventually discovered in nature. They were such low concentrations originally, we didn't have the techniques that were refined enough to detect small amounts. Now we're finding them. We made them in the laboratory, now we're finding them in nature. I told you I digress. Okay. So that was learn these symbols. Okay, I told you about extra credit. So here are the 2 extra credits. Getting to know the periodic table. So if you click on this right here, it takes you to another page. And in this page, you will have access to the document here, PDF file right there. That's the one that you want to print out. And then when you finish that exercise, you will have to either photograph it or scan it somehow. Make a file, and this is where you submit it. Right, browse my computer. Or, since we're face to face, you can bring it to class. You can bring your hard copies to class. But if you want to, you can submit it. Let's take a quick look. Getting to know the parent. There we go. So let's do that. There are your instructions. This is a coloring exercise. So you need color pencils that work the best because they're more precise than crayons. So get yourself some colored pencils. And these are the points that are available for each of these activities. And as you fill in the periodic table, there's the blank. So you're going to fill that in. All these elements. And other things that are required, like numbering the columns. There are also numbers down here. These have names. These are lanthanides. These are actinides. And those instructions are specific as to what you need to put in. And it's extra credit, right? So it'll help you learn these, but you get kudos for it. Okay, that's one of the extra credit. The other extra credit is, let's see, let me back up. I think it's naming. Yeah, 50 ways to name your content. So within, in the second chapter, we get into this in depth, the periodic table and naming compounds. So this gives you practice naming compounds. And it won't make any sense to you now, but it will once I can go over the rules and tell you how to use them. Okay. Now, also within this module, and in every module, you'll have a folder that says review documents. What are those review documents? Well, they come in 3 forms. This review document has no answers. It looks exactly like a paper exam, only it's bigger. It's got lots of practice problems. And I do that for a purpose. 2 of your best friends in chemistry, any of the sciences actually. 2 of your best friends are curiosity. If you never feel like you know enough about something, that's good. And the second best friend is boredom. If you're working problems and you're bored stiff working those problems, then you've done enough of them. You know them well enough. Move on to something else. So be curious and get bored. And the best way to get bored is work lots of problems, as much time as you've got available. And I give you as many as I can. So we'll look at one. Let's look at one of these options. Let's look at the key, because the key is exactly the same as the form, only it's got the answers. So let's just call that one up. Here. Okay. So the only difference is the form will be missing this key and be missing all the answers. So you can treat it exactly like an exam, because it looks like an exam. And some of my students do. They just print out a hard copy or sit in front of their computer and fill in the answers, work problems, fill in the answers, just go down as if they were taking a test. And then they take the key and grade themselves. And they go back, and the ones they missed, those are the ones that they would concentrate efforts on. So it helps focus your energies on problem areas. Also, these review documents are the basis for our review sessions. So in this schedule, you'll see occasionally we have review for exam, review for exam. That's what we're going to do. We're going to take those review documents, and when you come to class, you tell me the problems that you're having difficulty with, that you just cannot solve. And we'll do those first. And after everybody's been covered, if there's enough time, then I'll ramble on about other things. We'll try to help pull everything together. There was one other document. Let's see. What's that? It's called work problems. So if you can't figure out, if you know you got one wrong, you can't figure out how to answer, then go to this work problems. I'll show you what it looks like. Let's see. Okay. Notice it's in handwriting. That's there's some problems missing when I said this is just an error report. So I didn't bother trying to explain. But if there's some thought involved or some teaching moment, I took the problem and answered it and tried to explain how the answer was arrived. So that's why I call it work problems. They look just like this. They're in my handwriting. I took great pains. See about penmanship. Because you know how it is when you get hurt, it gets long. So I took my time and tried to write it. And actually, this is only one way to work the problem. Very often there are 2, 3, or even 4 ways to work the same problem. And if your logic is sound and you arrive at the same answer, then go with it. It makes sense to you. It doesn't violate any chemistry laws. It's a good solution. But this is the way I did it. One problem. Some of them are pretty hard and fast, like this one where number 33. That looks like an answer to a significant figure problem. How many significant figures in your answer? There's only one way to arrive at that answer. But some of them, the more complicated problems, you can arrive at the answer by different routes. Some of them shorter than others. And if you're in the middle of an exam, you want to learn the shortest way to answer the question. You're all day correct. Okay, so that you'll see that in every module for each chapter. These review documents. That's review documents for 1. Let's go back. There should be one for 2 also. Oh no, it's combined. Excuse me. Chapter 1 and 2 will be combined in this review document. I just remember. All right. So let's see. Have you got everything? Practice tests. Oh, archive videos. Let's take things forward. Homework, of course. These are direct links to the homework for that chapter. So you have in chapter problems here for 1, in chapter problems here for 2. These, since we're in the instructor's view, you won't see those. Those are grayed out. I got rid of those. The mastery type problems that they have in Cengage are just too time consuming and really don't add anything to the learning experience. So I just kept them. So these end chapter problems, they're like questions, some of them may be directly out of the back of the book. So chapter 1, 2, and then those will take you directly to the assignment for that chapter. And then these are archived videos. So if you want to see the progression of video quality over the years, in this course, you go back and look at some of the really old ones and see how bad it is. Otherwise, just stick around for the recording that you will get. And it'll probably click better because if you were there and you just need to review, then it looks good. But they're there if you want to. I have some students that wanted to use Blackboard to practice answer questions. So I have Blackboard tests. And you can take them as many times as you want. It'll grade them for you. It'll show you which ones are right, which ones are wrong. So you can use them also to practice and drill. And I've got them subdivided usually into the easy group of questions, the moderates and difficults if they're available. This one that looks like that they're difficult, but sometimes the moderates are difficult. But if you're familiar with taking Blackboard tests, you'll feel comfortable in this environment. Okay, so that's what you'll see in Blackboard, why it's there. All this other stuff is, let's see, textbook problems. Okay, this gives you solutions to the problems in the back of your textbook. Everyone. Because I'm an instructor in my course. But they don't give you the detail that I do with board problems. They just give you the answers. You got to figure it out yourself. But some students use them. And I didn't want to deny you the opportunity to tell them. Okay, so that's module 1, and all the other modules are smart. Okay. I still got this one. You don't need to pay attention to that one, but we're not gonna have to. Let me see if I can do something. Make up there. There you go. So you wouldn't be bothered with it. Okay. These are some external help to self-link, links to self-help. Some of them are useful. Everybody knows about Khan Academy. They do some good stuff. Here's some element flashcards. I think these are virtual, like on your computer. So you can flip through the virtual cards just as if they were in. Mr. Cause is okay. He's from Texas and he talks too fast. Let's see. I thought I had one. No, I don't have it. But if you want another one that's got some good videos, it's called Professor Dave. I'm not prejudiced. That's his name. Professor Dave does videos on various topics. Sometimes it helps to hear an explanation from somebody beside your instructor. Even if you get into study groups and just bouncing ideas off of each other, maybe a light bulb will go on. But if you only hear it from one person like me, and I try to explain it different ways, it may not be enough. You may need somebody else to give you a different perspective, and then the light will go on. Okay. It's 2 o'clock. I'm glad. Anybody need to take a break? I took one before I came in, so I'm good for this. Yeah.
On the schedule that they gave you, they said that labs was on Thursdays. only.
Yeah, they told me that as well.
Labs were on Thursdays?
Yeah.
Mine said Tuesday, mine said Monday.
Yeah.
Mine says Thursday.
Oh. That's not good.
One of them was kind of told me it was on Thursday.
Okay, have you been into the schedule to confirm that? Or even, let's see, will Blackboard show you? Let's look at it. Let's look at CHEM101R Blackboard. Lastly, no, before we do that, let's go to the course schedule. Interactive fall. And let's see, go in as a guest. Everybody knows this location? Look at the schedule. And let's see, let's find mode. And let's see, subject, let's just do all chemistry. You see all the chemistry courses. I'm the only one that teaches chemistry in school. I get to do all of them. Okay, 103. This one, that's green bright. That's everything is on Wednesday. Let's see, here's 103 for us. 12568 is the CRO. And that's Tuesday. So somebody told me wrong. Is that gonna mess with your schedule? Okay. You shall hear it. Just goes to show you, can't believe everything you hear, right? It's always good to verify. All right, and so we flip it over here to 103. And the syllabus for 103 has a lot of the same stuff in it, like this front page. It just tells you a little bit different stuff here, but you're going to need a calculator there too. Contact information is the same. I'll point out though, let me see, let me get off of that. That's still 101. Flip over here at 12568. Here. There's your blackboard. But to look at the syllabus, beyond the calculator, what you'll need for the lab is, excuse me. Well, the first one's obvious. The second one is what you'll really need. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. We didn't have a lab today, so we weren't getting 138. Okay. We're just starting to talk about the lab. So you're welcome to sit in because you're going to be, let's see. Well, I didn't put your name here, did I? Why don't you just sign your name in here and I'll make this N 103. Oh, you're here? Yeah. Okay. So are you only supposed to be in the lab? This was Thursday. Now, T is Tuesday, R is Thursday. Yeah. Oh. Well, yeah, that's the lecture. So we're going to meet on Tuesday and Thursday. And this T means Tuesday for the lab. Okay. So that's what we're doing right now. Only we're not in the lab right now. We're not going to do the lab. Just be comfortable. Okay, so if you were supposed to be here for the lecture, you missed it because it started at 12:30. Okay.
I came in at 12:30 and then I spoke about this in the other room. It was Thursday.
They read it wrong. This means Tuesday and Thursday. T is the letter for Tuesday and R is the letter for Thursday on your schedule. Okay. But all is not lost. I record everything so you can watch the video to see what you missed. Okay. So just grab a copy of everything and sign your name. Use your own pen, of course. Sign your name here next to your printed name and have a seat. You know, I should have brought. I was going to talk about this. The things that you're going to need for the lab, and one of them is this notebook, this bound notebook. Do you already have a copy of it? No, that won't work. Oh, yeah. Quadro line. Show everybody. No.
Okay, I'll get it.
I have blue sleeve.
Huh?
I have blue sleeve.
I'm sorry, I'm hard to hear.
Blue sleeve.
Loosely. No, it has to be bound. Now, whenever I go through Walmart, sometimes they run out of. Oh, 50?
None.
Oh, okay, well, that's better, because it costs $1 at Walmart. Okay, so I was gonna sell you one for $1, but if you can go to Kroger and find one for 50 cents, go ahead.
This was only 59 cents.
Okay, you need quadriline bound notebook. We don't want spirals, we don't want loose leaf. But if you can't find one, I've got extras in my lab. I have to sell them for $1 because I paid 97 cents plus tax. So I only charge you $1. I mean, I throw away a couple of cents just so I don't have to make change. But what are you going to do with this? We'll talk about that in a minute. You're going to need one of those. You're going to need a lab coat. That's knee length. That you ordered. Has it come yet?
It'll be here next week.
Okay. Let's see. All right, you're going to be okay next week. This is more of a busy work activity. We can do it in the lab or we can do it in here. So just read all that. There's a lot of background material here before you actually get to the exercise. So you can attempt the exercise now, or you can wait till next week. Just be prepared to work on it, and we'll take lab time to do that. I used to do an Excel workshop that you can use to process data and graph, and only a few students get it. Because if you don't understand how graphing works, then Excel doesn't help you. You need to understand the mechanics of making a graph, and then Excel can make your work more efficient, easier, and file an electronic copy. So that's why I switched back to this manual. And then if you're interested, I can show you how to do it in Excel. We could do a separate tutorial session if you're really interested, and we can go through the other exercise. And then actually it'll make more sense. A lab coat. We have eye protection in the lab, but yes.
Where I have glasses, does that count as eye protection?
Technically, no, because stuff can get in all around. Most lenses nowadays are polycarbonate, so you're protected against shatter. But yeah, that has side protection. You know what? $1 at Walmart. Okay.
I don't think this would fit over my glasses.
You want to try it? You do have big glasses.
What about like safety
They-
shields?
They have the actual ones for on glasses for $1 too at Walmart.
Yeah.
And with the things, the strap over your head.
Okay.
That's-
Safety shield. Why, do you have glasses? I didn't wear them. Oh,
But I used to work at Raleigh and I had to have goggles, so I bought safety shields for the side of my glasses, so where I can wear my glasses, so they're goggles if I have them on.
okay.
Is that big?
If you can, yeah, if you can protect your eyes from intrusion, that's the important thing. I had one experiment we did, and we're going to do, is Boyle's Law. And we do it using a pressure vessel, a 2-liter pop bottle. And we pressurize it with a hand pump or with an electric tire pump. And I made the mistake of reusing bottles. And they're like airplanes. When they go up and come down, they expand and they contract, and they expand and contract, and they weakens them. So that bottle got weakened with several applications of this pressure cycle, and it blew up on a student. So now you need a protection. He had protection, but now we use the bottle once, throw it away. They're supposed to be good. The new bottles are good to 100 psi, and we only go up to about 60. But if you do that over and over again, it kind of weakens things, especially up around the neck. That's where it blew. And the whole building heard it. It was a pow. It's like a gun going off. I thought everybody's gonna, head to the safe zones. Okay, so eye protection, we do have goggles in the lab. They've been around for years. So since we have a small class, you should be able to find a pair that's not scratched. But if you prefer, buy yourself a pair for cheapy. This lady knows where to find the cheap stuff. Okay, we provide the gloves. Sometimes you'll need the glove up for experiments. Okay, let's see, what else is particular for, okay, I'll talk about preparing the lab notebook in just a minute. Let me be sure. Let's come back to that. Let's talk about the grading scale first. Lab reports are worth 70%, and we have 7 labs. Okay. Lab skills is kind of subjective judgment on my part. Don't have any accidents that are your fault. Don't cause anybody else injury. That's a good indicator. Participate with your lab partner. I think, we're supposed to be socially distanced. So if you got a lab partner, you may have to, lab partners on one side of the bench and you're on the other. You can do that. But you need to participate. So I don't want one lab partner doing all the work. Lab skills. Okay. So it's sort of subjective, but I try to be very generous. Lab notebook. So I do periodic inspections of your lab notebook. It needs to be maintained. You don't wait till the end of the semester to fill out all the experiments in the lab notebook in the past tense. You need to build your lab notebook as we go through the semester. And the primary reason is safety. The safest behavior is be prepared. If you know what's expected, what you're going to deal with in each lab, then you're a safer student. You're a safer worker. You never went in, when I was in research, we never went into the lab without knowing exactly what our method was going to be. And even then, you can have accidents, but they were less deadly accidents if you're prepared. Administrative withdrawal, that little blurb down there, that's the same as on the other. Let's see, contact the same, there's our schedule. Okay, so we're going to do this in graphing techniques next week. Now, you'll notice there's a difference between the green letters, informal reports, and the red letters, formal reports. There's a structure to a formal report. And I'll show you how it is, and I'll bring handouts for that one next week. Yeah.
Why did they say Wednesdays? The day of this Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oh, did I give you the wrong version?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I had them both stacked together, didn't I? 12, 5, 8. Yeah, I gave you the wrong one. I'm sorry. All right. Have you already written on them? Okay. I'll take them back.
I've written on mine.
You can keep it if you want. And I'll get you the correct copies. I'll tell you what. Let's take a break. I don't want you to go home without the real report. So let me go get it. In fact, let me see if I can print from here. That would save me the trouble of walking down the hall. Let's see here. I haven't put it on this. No,
It's not on this one yet.
so I'm gonna have to go to my office. So, sit tight.
My board rate. We could totally use them on Thursday. I'm not gonna laugh. I'm down. Yeah, kind of. I was like 10 minutes. Like 25 minutes.
It's in Bay County, but it's like,
I just had one in the past.
It's still like going, like, to go in summer school.
I just hope when it snows, they don't expect me to fight
Yeah.
my
If it
kid.
snows, I can.
We have to fight my kid to maybe soon. I live on the bottom of the hills. What do you mean, I gotta go up the hill?
No, I have to go downhill just to go right back up. Because I live in the middle of nowhere on a single gravel road. That is hill road.
I feel it.
Yeah, if it snows, I put my brain responsible. Because
I drive a Beetle, so.
I know that little lower Ford out there in front of the rock. That's me.
Hey, you get you from the A to point B.
Well, whenever I put in the ditch, I have the water. Very pregnant. It takes me about 2 hours to get through.
Where do you work at?
I'm actually a filmmaker. I got from which is a very precise school. But I work in Spain. I have another class on Wednesdays and also working with me. So I will be able to do those classes. And we scheduled me for this class. Please excuse me.
When I was registering for my class, the only one I could find. Didn't even find
I
out.
think it's pretty much short.
Oh, well, then, this. I said, I just meant it. It's all done.
Just trying to get this to Summersville because it's.
Yeah, next semester too. Next semester. Maybe not. If they get their crap together and get MLT directed, then yeah, but if not, I'll be
So you're
transferring.
going into.
Yeah, then I'll be transferring to my job.
Always love do anyway. People on in.
Well, I'm already in a lot of this, so it's easy.
That's not as bad as it is, right? Actually,
Not bad.
Here and
It's a 14-week class at ACT.
But my dad works at a school that I'm gonna have a job with as soon as I'm done with school. And he said, this girl did little people save me so much money. But it doesn't seem to have to do your program until the 7 weeks. Because I was going to do 7 weeks.
But yeah, if they don't get a director, I'll have to transfer to my college.
Mhm.
because they only accept new students for that program once a year. And I'm not gonna miss out on that acceptance, I'll have to wait a whole other year.
Well, this one of the I talked to more evaluate something. People can think.
Oh, they better not be having those goods. I mean, I've already spent $7,000 out of pocket this year, I ain't gonna wait around. Oh, yeah, I got denied everything. FAFSA, grant.
I didn't get to my grades.
My husband makes too much, so I just.
don't know. I'm going through divorce right now and fast forward, and I said, I feel like I'm so. Fast forward. Oh, I got my grades. I moved it $4.
No
It was only
wish.
supposed to be $11.50.
The only
And they
plus side is
added
when I file my
fees on
tax
the very
bill,
last
I got
second.
back every job.
But no, I went to the very last second to pay everything. And I forgot my card and I paid for all that work. So I had to call my dad to okay, so you have my card information or can I borrow your card? He was like, what? Because all my tuition is due today. It's like proposal pay. Like, nope, it's like $20 down. He's like,
Yeah, I was gonna apply for outside scholarships. I've applied for my fingers, so I'll type it those.
yeah, I can't get student loans or your loans. Because when
No, I could probably get a loan. I mean, I ain't
I
getting
tried going
one.
to school.
I already had to shut that book down. I had to take a loan for the first semester because nothing came in. It was like the very last minute.
Well, I
It was so bad, the summer semester that I done, I had 2 payments of $900. And then my payment this semester was, because they can only do 3 payments, like you're only allowed to do 3 payments. I'm like, and I messaged her like the beginning of the summer, I'm like, I can start making payments now, like, can you just make them smaller? Because they were like $1,007. That was like half a month's check. Gone.
Roughly
Success.
$300 for a paycheck that I'm working with that, and that's for every like half month. So. With no benefits. So, at least not doing this.
Oh, I think it is done.
Yeah.
If- hold on.
What's he do?
Leave the NLC, sorry.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. What, with you or just in general?
Probably both.
Okay, let's see. That crossways, so I don't get them mixed up again. All right, now we're back on the same page. Hopefully. In this case, the ones that are highlighted in yellow are the labs that occur on that day. These are not like the lecture which designate due dates. That's what's going to happen on that day. And to the right is the description of the lab that's going to happen on that day. If you're looking for due dates, then on the right, you'll also see, for instance, next to the 31st of August, you'll see in brackets, square brackets, the exercise 1 informal report due. So that means the introducing graphing techniques, which is exercise 1, is due on that day. And as a general rule, what I do is, if we do a lab exercise during this period, then the next time we go into the lab to do an exercise, that's when that previous one is due. So sometimes it's due in a week, sometimes it's due in 2 weeks. If there's a holiday intervening, like Thanksgiving, there are a couple of weeks in between there. November 16th and November 30th is the holiday week, so you got a couple of weeks to get that last one done. I try to space them out so that they occur in the same vicinity as the material we're covering in class. So it at least makes sense. Formal reports. Okay, informal reports, you just take the hard copy and you fill it out, answer the questions, fill in the information, do the calculations. I want you to get practice though with the informal reports, filling in your lab notebook with information, using your lab notebook to do experiments. So this is probably a good jumping off point for what do I do with my lab notebook? Because if you put your lab notebook together correctly and fill in all the information that you need in it, then writing the reports from your lab notebook is simple. It's easy. Everything's right there already. So the key to writing good formal reports, which will come with exercise 3. Yeah, exercise 3 is your first formal report. Those are easy to do if you prepared your lab notebook correctly. So let's talk about that. Can I use yours as an example? So the first thing you want to do is put your name, the course you're in, and the semester. That's all the information you need right here. Everything's in ink. Okay. Don't use red. That's my color. Black is best, but if you need a different color for a reason, like you want to call attention to something, say you're setting up your lab notebook to do an experiment, and you want to be sure not to miss something, then you can put it in a different color, or you could put a box around it so that it stands out, that type of thing. So back to preparation. Okay, so you got this, you got identified as your own, belongs to you. All right. Next thing you do is go in and number every page. So this one will be 1 up here in the right hand corner. And you flip it over. That will be 2. This will be 3. So all the right hand facing pages will be odd numbers. And all the left hand facing pages will be even numbers. So if you get down the line and you start saying, uh-oh, I got an odd number over here. There. We go back and look. If you missed a page, okay. Do that all the way to the end. Even though you're not going to use every page, number every page. Okay. Now, once you've got that done, go into the first page, which is page 1, and just write table of contents right across the top. And then each time you do an experiment, you set up an experiment, you write the name here on the right, the page that you start on. Some students like to put page starting and page ending. That's okay. But you really only need the page that you start on. Because you're going to go through that one, then if you see a page down here, that means this one has to end sometime between there and there. So you really don't need the ending page. And each time you do a new experiment, you put it in here with the name and the page number. Okay. And then you go over here. I usually skip a couple of pages. Maybe so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe on page 5. You put the title of the experiment. And then you put certain information in there that's required. And what you want in your lab notebook before you go in the lab is enough information drawn from the hard copy so that you take the lab notebook in there with you. The hard copy stays at home or in your bag, and you do the experiment from the notebook. The reason I want you to do that is that you're sure to put enough information in here and have looked through the method thoroughly enough to get all that information in here. So you've studied the experiment before you do it. That makes it safe. You know what you're going to do. Put it in here. Now, what kind of format do we want? So I've got a sample here of a lab notebook that is a good example of how to do it. Let's see. The usual stuff, you know, you got the syllabus, you got your schedule, you get all that stuff. alerts on safety. Here's some lab exercises. So I'm gonna skip those for now. And just go to this stuff on the lab. Okay. You've got, instructions for how to do a lab report. We'll get to those later. You've got a rubric. For your formal lab reports, I have a rubric. Everybody's familiar with rubrics. Okay. I use a rubric just to help keep me honest in grading you. So I grade everybody on the same scale. What am I expecting? The rubric tells you what am I looking for in the report. Let's see. This is instructor view, so you won't see that. That's okay. Let's see. This is probably a good one for a report. We'll come back to that in a minute. I want to look at how to start people lab notebook. Those are just instructions. Example, here we go. Example lab. That's the one I'm looking at. As soon as it finishes downloading. Let's open it up. All right. So you'll notice that the front cover has this information. And there we go. I noticed that this student had not identified those batteries are dead already. Okay. Old fashioned way. Notice that they're missing this designation, the semester and the year that identifies when this happened. Plus, when you fill in your lab notebook for each of the, when you actually start putting in information in that exercise, you're going to date it. So the dates will be there. This means I've got to click them over here. I'm going to plug that in the battery. I was a Boy Scout once for 6 months. Always be prepared. Here we go. That's what I really need is a man bag. Okay. I hope it's just batteries. Otherwise, I might have to buy it. All right. So that's the cover. And let's see. Well, this is inside cover. Don't worry about that. Table of contents. Okay, so this student wanted beginning and ending, which is okay. And actually put dates in here. That's not a bad touch either. Okay, notice the pages are numbered. Right. And also, if you don't pick up on this, only write on the odd pages, the right-hand pages. Fill in the information you need, right? And I'll talk about that in a minute. And leave spaces. It's best to skip a space, right, when you're writing here. Why? Because you may make a mistake. And when you make a mistake in your lab notebook, you don't erase because it's in ink. Draw a line through it and make the correction. It's not just to say, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I did. It's to tell anybody that looks at it in the future that this is an honest reporting of what happened. Right? I made a mistake. There's no crime. I corrected the mistake. Besides, if you work for a company, well, even if you work for the government, and you put everything you do in your lab notebook, then when you leave that employer, that notebook belongs to them, not yours. It's their property. because that establishes continuity if somebody else comes in and follows your work. Then they can go in and see what you did. They could even go in and repeat your experiments. So when you fill in your lab notebook, at this point for this particular experiment, for instance, you have enough information in there so that they can go in, they can take your lab note, they can duplicate your experiment. Maybe they'll find something else wrong. Maybe they'll do it better, but that's okay. The lab notebook there is a permanent record of what was done. And if you work for a company that's potentially going to patent some of your work, you better have one of these, right? Or you won't get that patent. Okay. So we only write on the right-hand side, and the even number pages are reserved for what? They're reserved for whopper mistakes. If you don't have enough room to correct your mistake on this side, you cross it out, draw an arrow here, and correct it in that open space. Or, what was the other one? You could spread results over there, right? You want to make room for your results on the odd pages, but if it spills over, then you got a place for it to go. Or if you draw graphs in your book, right? You got quadriline paper, you can draw a graph over there on the other side. Or if you create something in the computer, print out a copy, cut it out, and paste it in your book, which is kosher, you can put it on that other side. But by the way, if you do put something in your notebook like that, if you cut and paste, say this is your page, right? Without all the lines. So you put something in, you paste it in there, like that. Okay. How do you know in the future if paste just dried out, fell out, or somebody ripped it out? You sign it, or you initial it. Cross that boundary. Then at least you know if it's missing that there's something was there. You can't always rely on sun bleaching to help you out. This tells you that something was there.
So always write on the odd pages and then anything else extra write on the even.
Right. Give yourself plenty of room. I mean, you're going to have 200 pages in this book. You're not going to use all of them this semester. So you got plenty of room. So just spread it out. Okay. Leave yourself lots of room. So you may want to make a comment. Say you get to a step, let's see, in the procedure, right there, right? And you want to make an additional comment, right? You notice something when you got to that step in the procedure, something didn't look right or it just caught your attention, then you can either write it in space you have available or go to the other side. Okay, let me back up and call attention to various things. All right, so you got your title, you got the objective, right? There's got to be a reason for doing the lab. I mean, we're just not going in there to throw stuff together. Not that you could make an explosion, but if you don't know what you're doing, I guess that's possible. Or you could combine, say, I don't know, bleach and ammonia, right? In a closed room, everybody passes out from the what is it, phosgene gas. I knew somebody that did that. Thought, oh man, if bleach works great, ammonia works great, think what they could do together. Pour them in the bucket and start cleaning my bathroom. Next thing you know, you're in the hospital. Okay, so I digress. There's your objective. Then the materials that you're going to need. Right? Gather the materials. Now, you won't have to bring these materials because that's my job. I get the lab set up for you so you can find the materials, but this is what you're going to need. And then the hard copy method may have some pre-lab questions to prepare you for the activity. Those will go in here with answers and calculations if required. That means you're ready to have some basic understanding of what we're doing in the lab. That's the purpose of the pre-lab questions. Put those in there. Some students like to put the question in and then the answer. Right. You want as much detail in here as you need to do the experiment without the hard copy, the handout, and to repeat the experiment 6 months down the road if you ever have to. Or somebody coming in behind you, they can take your work and repeat the experiment. So detail is the answer. All right, so these were, this was a pre-lab question. It's filled in and ready to go. And when you write your report, you're going to have all this stuff in your report too. And I'll show you the format in just a minute. We have time. Okay. So the procedure. The procedure is set up, this is in several activities. So activity 1 has these steps. And this actually looks like it was written in the past tense. What you want is in the lab book, say, this is what to do. Do this, do this, do this, do this. It's directions. It's like a recipe. When you write your report, you write it in the passive past tense. You want to say, this is what was done. And you don't use first person. You don't say, we did this. You say, this was done. It's third person passive past tense. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But this is enough detail so that you can conduct the experiment from the lab notebook. Let's see. Then you need a place to put your information, the data. How you arrange it, you want to reserve a space in there, and you have places for all the numbers that you're going to collect, or all the observations you're going to collect. And if you put them in your lab notebook like this with empty blanks for the information, then if you get down here and you say, those things are still blank, why? Skip the step, that's why. So you immediately stop and go back and see, is this salvageable or do I have to start over again? It's better to find out here than it is to find out there, that you don't have the information. So that's why I encourage students to put in a table or a description with a underlined blank for information. That's, you're supposed to have something in that place when you do the experiment. Okay, and there's more procedure. There's another activity. And then this student cut and pasted an Excel spreadsheet graph they generated with the data. You can do it that way, or you can draw it in, whatever it takes. And some experiments don't require that. But if a graph helps explain what's going on and it helps tease out information from the experiment, then it's a good thing. Wait. It's another mistake I didn't catch. They didn't sign it. They didn't sign it across the boundary. Okay. But I didn't penalize them for it because they didn't catch the mistake. And here's actual recording of data. We're going to do this experiment pretty soon. For each time interval, 15 seconds, each 15 seconds, you measure the temperature of lauric acid. We're going to heat lauric acid up until it's melted. And then we're going to measure the temperature every 15 seconds until it solidifies. We find its freezing point. And then we'll add something to it. Add some benzoic acid. We're going to know the exact mass of that benzoic acid. Put it in there, heat it up again, make sure it's well mixed, and do it all over again right here. And we find that the freezing point is different the second time around. And we use that information to calculate the molar mass. I know that probably doesn't mean anything to you now, but we can use that to do a calculation. Extract that information from this data. Okay, and there you have calculations, right? Shows how you derive various values from the information that you gathered during the experiment. Now these can, you want to have spaces for these calculations. you may not be this detailed. You may just have calculations and then blank page. You fill it in later. But you want spaces for all this stuff. You want to reserve space. Here, laboratory questions. These are post-lab questions. So you do those after the experiment. And some of the post-lab questions actually instruct you to derive information and do calculations with experimental results. Okay, so you can put those in here, or you can say, all right, for this action, it's already in another part of the, like one of these calculations, it says down here, the question says, do this. You know, I want this answer. Well, you say you've already done it once, so you don't want to do it again. So you say refer to page something, number something. Okay. Okay. So there's more questions. And then, oops. Okay, we're missing something else. Summary and conclusions. What did you learn from the experiment? What can you say about it? I mean, what were the objectives mine's going blank. Did you reach your objective? Or if it's the type of experiment that has a hypothesis in it, say, and you know what a hypothesis is, we have covered. So hold that thought. It may be in that form. Did you support your hypothesis with the experiment results? Or any other comments in the summary and conclusions? You know, synthesize the information and draw conclusions from it. That's the thinking part, because that's going to be required in your formal report. So we need to go now. And the first time I look at your notebook, first time I check it, I just want to see the basic stuff, like the type, the information on the cover, all the pages numbered, table of contents. And if we're set to do an experiment that day, have it set up in your lab notebook. And that's all I'm looking for the first time around. And the reason for this is not just to give you a grade. If you don't have it set up right now, we need to correct that so that you're not riding the wrong horse all the way through the lab. Okay. It's easier to make a course correction early than it is late. If you follow the research on the near Earth objects, comets and asteroids that come close to Earth, some of them have the potential to strike Earth. Well, the rule is the earlier you discover it, the farther away it is from Earth, it's less difficult to deflect it away from Earth. Right? It's an angular deflection. So if you get close to Earth, then you've got to make a bigger angular deflection to get it out of the way, and that takes more energy. But if you find it way out here, you can deflect it just a little bit, and it'll miss the Earth by thousands of miles. So we want to correct things early, so you can not just learn the right way to do it, but not spin your wheels. You want to maximize your efforts. All right. I was going to show you what does a formal lab report look like. Okay. So let's go. Kroger. Let's say that anymore. They don't say let's go Kroger. That was a gene board we had years ago. Kroger advertised a lot. Okay, let's see, that was a lab notebook. Oh, I passed it. Here it is. Example report with a rubric. So this report, let's see, will give you a reasonably good example with a graded rubric. So let me shrink that a little bit so you can see more of it. Okay. That's good. You can see most of it there. Okay. I know it's on its side. The rest of the document would be right side up. But if you turn it this way, I wonder if I could do that. I don't see any view. I wonder if it. What if it let me turn it? Then you won't have to twist your head. Zoom. Rotate. Here we go. Clockwise. Ha. All right. So this is what the rubric looks like that I use to grade formal lab reports. And it shows you what I'm looking for, each one of these categories. Come on. There we go. Each one of these categories here. And points for how well you provide that information across here. These are all 12 points. This group is 9 points all over. If you get to this column, you don't want to be there. That's 0 points. But it's possible if you take this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times 12, that's more than 100, isn't it? It's like 108. So if you get a perfect score down here, you could end up with 108 points. Okay, so what am I looking for? Well, there are sections to the report that I want to see. And we went over those sections in the lab notebook. Because if you duplicate those sections in your lab report, everything's there, right? You have the title, you have the objectives. We didn't do a blurb on safety. There needs to be something, say something about safety in your report. You ought to do it in your lab notebook too. Safety, and then materials. What are you going to need for the experiment? Then pre-lab questions, if there are any. Then procedures. Okay. And I'll talk more about the procedures in a minute. And then data. The information that was collected during the experiment is in one section. And then calculations, if there are any. And then follow those with post-lab questions, if there are any. Sometimes there are none. Post-lab questions, and then summary and conclusions. Right? Those sections are what I'm looking for. If you're missing one, you go over here. Missing 2, you go over here. If you're missing 3 or more, you go over there with no points. So a really shoddy report will get you 0 out of this one. Spelling and punctuation. This is the easiest one to get a good score. Just use your spell checker to begin with, and then proofread your own work, or get somebody to proofread it for you. And then you can get the whole 9 yards on this one. Grammar, it's a little bit more difficult because, let's face it, most of our students today are really not trained very well in grammar. So I want third person passive past tense. So what does that mean? If you're trying to describe what happened in the lab, you would say, let's say you actually went in the lab and you measured 250 milliliters of sodium hydroxide solution. So 250 milliliters of a 0.1 molar, I don't know, you don't know what that means yet. Molar sodium hydroxide, aqueous solution, was measured into or using a 500 milliliter graduated cylinder. Right, that's third person. because this is the subject of the sentence. It's not first person, it's not second person, it's not I or we, and it's not you. Right? So everything else is third person. So that's the third person, usually the inanimate object. And this is what was done, was measured. And then some more details, what was done. That's third person past tense. It happened in the past, it actually happened. The instructions in the lab may say to do something, but suppose you have to make an adjustment in your procedure. Instead of 250 milliliters, maybe the procedure called for 260 milliliters, but there had to be a change made. This is actually what happened in the lab. And that's the way to word it. And if you word all your procedures that way, then you get 12 points. Okay. This is, the procedures here is more the, let's see, wait a minute, that's grammar, appearance, and organization. Most students do pretty well there. I mean, it has to be typed. So it's going to be easier to organize and easier to read because it's typed. And then, are your procedures written in clear numbered steps? Okay. Is it something that I can follow easily? And the data. Right? Was your data there? Was it accurate? Right? Say you're missing a whole block of data that should have been collected during the experiment. That's a black eye. Was it organized professionally? Right? If it's organized professionally, if it looks like a professional graph of your data that you could easily publish in the referee journal, then yeah, I'm going to give you the full 12 points for that one. Analysis. Right? What did you do with that information? Or did you draw conclusions? Did you relate various analyses logically? And did you have a section on conclusions, summary and conclusions? And what did you say in the summary and conclusions? Did you say, I've had students do this, we had fun. I didn't take much thought, did it? So they were down here on this end. And then how did your report illustrate an accurate understanding of the scientific concepts? Because we do these labs to reinforce concepts that we learn in lecture. Did your lab prove that you understood the concepts behind what you did in the lab? And like I said, I've already taught a class today, so I don't remember if I said this one. If it's not in writing, it never happened. I learned that 22 years of government research. If it's not in writing, never happened. You don't have a written report on your performance every 6 months, then you weren't performing. So that's the way they think, because the government, the U.S. government's the biggest bureaucracy in the world, and they live by papers, paperwork. So we have, in my opinion, more bureaucrats than we can stand, but that's the system I was given. Anyway, so this is the rubric, and these are the things that I'm looking for. And now, what does it look like? Okay, I got to rotate back. Okay, let's see. Where was I? Back counterclockwise. There we go. So this was an actual report. And I asked the student if I could use it, and I removed all personally identifiable information. So in this place, you're going to have the title, you're going to have your name, and then your lab partner's name. So we know who to blame. And by the way, you and your lab partner will acquire the same data from the experiment. Okay, that's a given. What you do with that data is your personal responsibility. I don't want to read 2 lab reports from the 2 lab partners that are word for word verbatim the same. Then I know one or the other of you wrote it and the other one copied it. I can't tell which one, so I grade it, and I give one partner half the credit, I give the other one half. So if you get 100, I grade it, you get 100 points, and one lab partner gets 50, the other gets the other 50. Okay, so that's your lab partner, and this is the course that it pertains to. You really only need the designation for the course. You can give as much detail here as you want. And then when was the lab performed? You can put the date that the report was written if you want, but I'm more interested in when did the experiment take place. Okay, then you have all these different parts to it: the objectives, the materials, the blurb on safety, procedures, written with the correct grammar, and then a publishable table of data. That's what it would look like. That's very good table of data that would easily go into a referee journal. And actually, the format for this formal report I derived from the format that you would use in a referee journal article. It's not exactly the same because, after all, this is a student lab, but it's generally the same, and it gives you experience writing those types of reports because you may have to in the future. It's a skill that may set you apart from other people applying for the same job. Okay, so we have any graphs that you might have to produce. Like this is a Boyle's law graph experiment. So you're going to have pressure and volume plotted together. Pressure on volume here and pressure here, right? And then this is a modification of the data. We'll talk about this when we get to the gases. Modification of this data, it's the same set of data, except you take one of them and you do the inverse of it. The volume here, this is the inverse volume. When you do that, it plots a straight line. So remember that when you get to Boyle's law. Okay, let's see. It must have been, okay, we did 2 trials in it. So there's the second trial with data. And let's see. Oh, here we go. I missed the heading. There's calculations. So the next pages will have calculations and even some explanation of how the calculations work. Why did you do them? You don't have to do that, but in the calculations section, but whatever speaks to you. If you can go back and read this report, say you write it out one day, finish it one day, you set it aside for 24 hours. If you've got plenty of time in 48 hours, and go back and read it again. Does it still make sense? Because I don't know about you, but my memory cycle is like 12 hours max. So I just set it aside for a few hours and come back, and it's like watching a brand new movie again. Does it still make sense? And here we have a section on pre-lab questions, right? Post-lab questions. As long as you clearly identify them as what they are, then I don't have any trouble finding them. You don't want to make them work too hard on your instructor. You might get cranky and start swinging that red pen. Okay, conclusions and summary. So this student obviously took pains, thought about it. Got 3 paragraphs there. And you don't have to, but this student went to external sources and cited the source. Okay, so that's what a report, a good formal report looks like. And all this is in Blackboard. Find it when you get ready to write one. If you set up your notebook correctly and you fill in all the information like that, the only change you have to make when you're writing a formal report is the grammar, the procedure. What was actually going on. And the rest of it just falls into place. So you can make it easy on yourself if you work at it steadily. Put things together piece by piece. Chemistry, a lot of subjects are this way, but chemistry definitely. is one subject that you don't want to cram for. Cramming, maybe some people could do it, but I never could. I'd take it small doses. I work hard to learn something, and then go away, then come back, overlap, work a little more. Actually, gradually accumulate the information and skills. Try to cram, it'll come back to home. Most people, there are exceptions. People have photographic memories. Sometimes that's the blessings and not the curse. Okay, I didn't have to worry about that. I had to understand how something works. Let's see, protocol tabs. There we go. Like, I don't know, you used to be able to work on your own cars. Well, they went electronic. You know, you had your standard carburetor, so all you had to do was just change the jets. You had points and plugs, change the points. Okay. Points are part of the ignition system. Now it's all electronic. So the electronic, the little brain tells it when to fire the plug. Used to be mechanical. You'd have a little cam in there that you'd make the points go like this, like this, like this. And when the point broke, it would release a charge that was built up in the I forgot the name of the part. It was a coil, and it would release like a 10,000 volt jump that would jump the gap on your plugs, fire the mixture inside the cylinder. But now they're all electronic. You can't work on it. I forgot where I was going with that. Okay, maybe let's see. Have I used up all I had? 3:50. So we got a few more minutes. Any questions? Yeah, that's fine. We're winding down now, I think. But I'm glad I set up the schedule so that we weren't actually going to look at any chemical principles today. We'll do that on Thursday. Yep. Okay. Yeah, they'll be on Blackboard. Yeah. The evidence should be there, but since we have time, I'll show you. So it'll be up there in just a second. All right, 103, we'll go back to 101. That was the lab Blackboard. This is the lecture. Okay, so scroll down. Now, this is the instructor's view, so you're going to see some things here that you won't see. Be sure and take the syllabus test. If you don't take the syllabus test, then nothing's going to open up. It's conditional. Let's see. Module. Okay, so each one of these modules corresponds to an exam. So module 1, open that up, and then you scroll down, and you see in here, these are the PowerPoint slides for the 2 chapters. And then there's going to be archived videos. These are old videos from previous semesters. When I upload this video to YouTube, I'll put a link, and it'll go. We're going to do chapter 1 next time we meet, so I'll put it right here underneath PowerPoint. It'll be obvious. I'm sure. Let me just do make something. The web link name. Yes. And then URL. Yes. Hope it accepts. It didn't like that. It'll pop up there. Oh, I know what. Go to one of the archives. Let me show you that. Archive. So there's the icon. That icon with the World Wide Web is what that stands for. So if you click on one of these, let's see, how about chapter 1? It'll pop up in YouTube. You can make it bigger. Make it in full screen. Okay. Now that's when I was working out of my house. During the COVID panic. So you're going to see a split screen with the PowerPoints on one side and the other. I like it that way because if I have to make a comment, see here I got a board. There, I just had a whiteboard plain. You could annotate the slides that you were talking, but the utility, I've used this word before, but it's true. The utility in Zoom for annotating your slides is extremely slow. Takes me time to activate it. So that's why I use the whiteboard. Okay, so that's what it looked like. Any questions? Well, let's see. Who are we missing? We're missing Lana and Lindsay. Right? Lana and Lindsay not here? Okay. We're missing. Okay. Well, for no other questions, I guess we're done. A little early. And I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be fixing Cengage. That's my excuse. We're finishing early, so I can go fix the Cengage problem.
Do you know the syllabus?
Yeah. You know what? You don't have to do that because you're already got a syllabus test, right? Now the lab. Let's say that till next week. I've got a different form for you to fill out for the lab. It's a safety agreement. And I think that would be better for you. But thank you for reminding me.
How can I make up my missed class? So I'm looking at, I'm gonna miss 3 if I'm that bad, but I don't think I will.
We have a choice. You can partner with someone and get the information from them.
Go off my hopes and prayers as well there data.
Yeah. Or the other option we have is in the lab, while we're here.
That Skype thing, that would be pretty cool.
I'm sorry?
If it was a Zoom thing, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the lab and see if we can be sure that they're there. So the lab exercises here. So the lab exercises, here we go. Let's skip that one. Let's go down to something more substantial. Like Boyle's Law. We were just looking at a report for Boyle's Law. If you open this Boyle's Law folder, you'll find 3 things here. This is the Boyle's Law folder that has the hard copy document. That's where you submit your report. This one has, and you won't be using this one because I'm going to actually see your. Maybe you will. This is the lab notebook pages for exercise 2. And this one is the lab demo. It's on adaptive release. I need to correct that too.
So it's like the demo of the lab itself.
Yes, I actually, when we were all sequestered, I came up here and went in the lab, set it up. I had a little GoPro knockoff camera, one that I could afford. GoPros are too expensive. And I did the whole lab and narrated it as I was doing it, and then posted the video. And then my students watched the video. I mean, it's not the best of worlds, but at least they saw what was done and gathered. They had to pay attention because I was generating data as I went, and you had to catch the data as I was going, and then generate your report. So you had to fill out your notebook. That's why the notebook pages. Fill out your notebook, and just like you would go in the lab, and then watch the video, put that information in the notebook, observations, and then generate your report.
Okay, and how would I send those reports to you?
Right here.
On Blackboard?
Yeah, right here on the, right here where you go into Boyle's Law, the first one, right there. When you get your report done, this is the document that you worked on, right here. And then you submit your report here as attached files.
Okay.
And anybody can do that. Say if you come to lab, we're going to do a lab today, but you're supposed to submit a lab report. Say you left it at home. Well, you can go home and dump it there. As long as it gets to me before midnight, and they're time stamped, so I know it's arrived. I don't have to sit up to midnight to watch for it. Then you can submit your report that way too. And that's fairly convenient because you're going to generate your report in a word processor like Word. So it's going to be a file already, and you can just dump it there.
Okay.
And don't forget, press the submit button.
All right. Well, that's easy enough.
So that's probably the best way to handle this while you're going. Now, one pitfall for doing it this way, leaving those labs open, is there's a temptation for students to go in there and do that and not do the lab and here hands-on.
I'd rather be hands-on, but.
Yeah.
I have to do the rest.
But I don't want you guys doing that. I mean, if you're able to show up, go in there and get your own data. Okay. Okay, so I guess we are done, man. A couple of false starts. If there are no other questions. Okay, so I can stop the recording, I guess. Here we go.